My name is Forrest Glover. I've been in Mexico for almost 6 years. I run an interior design company out of the United States, and I absolutely love Guadalajara.
Hey, Jen Max, you just met Forrest, and we are going to have a great interview today. I haven't done a pre-interview on this, just a tiny little bit of one. So we're both meeting Forrest for the first time with this video, but we're going to talk about his place here, which is just a gorgeous place here, an old house in Guadalajara. Going to talk about how he's running his business, what his rent is, all kind of the standard stuff, whether he speaks Spanish. So let's dig right in and get Forrest's story first of making his way to Mexico.
I am originally from Alabama. I also lived in San Francisco for 16 years, and then I came to Mexico actually on accident. I was here buying furniture for a friend that bought a place in Puerto Vallarta. And the first time I came down here, I just fell in love with Guadalajara and actually just the Lafayette neighborhood in the city. And also doing interior design, I've kind of specialized in custom furniture and window treatments. And Guadalajara is just the perfect place to have this stuff made.
Yes, Guadalajara is the furniture capital of Latin America. It is furniture here. A lot of people come from all around Mexico doing furniture tours and purchasing their furniture here and having it shipped back. That's something, our house came completely furnished. Otherwise, that's probably what we would have done. But let's go back to Forrest's story here. And really, when he landed in Mexico, what did that look like?
During this first trip to Guadalajara, buying furniture for my friend in Puerto Vallarta, I kind of had the beginning of a midlife crisis. I was 39 at the time, and I was here with my ex-partner. It just kind of was a disaster of a trip. The furniture was amazing, but the relationship fell apart while we were actually here. So I went back I was living just north of San Francisco, and fell into this horrible depression and midlife crisis. It was crazy. But at the same time, when I was on that trip, I was like, I want to move to Guadalajara and learn how to speak Spanish, because I had tried for probably 15 years with no success. So I moved to Tlaquepaque in January of 2019. And as soon as I landed, I was like, what have you done for us? Like, it was like the worst idea ever, because I had been here with someone who could speak Spanish during that other trip. And I landed here, couldn't even figure out where to get the Uber to my Airbnb in Tlaquepaque.
So Tlaquepaque is definitely a furniture place and definitely an upscale place, a beautiful part of town. I'm going to be heading over there and doing another interview. If that one's ready, it'll be up in one of these corners. But I want to just continue this story from Tlaquepaque, then where?
So Tlaquepaque, it was kind of spur of the moment. Like I had never even been there, but the friend who had bought the furniture in PV had been there for about 2 hours and suggested that I live there. So I moved to Tlaquepaque and figured out very quickly that I was not in Guadalajara. So it's just a completely different vibe. It was the best decision I made, but also it was during the gasoline crisis. So it was very difficult for me to get from Tlaquepaque to Guadalajara. But I met some American friends there the first day. So it was very easy for me to integrate when I was getting used to the culture in Mexico. And then I would just take 45-minute or 25-minute Uber drives to Guadalajara to see my friends.
Well, let's talk more about those friends and how Forrest's Spanish is coming along.
So at the time, I was really focused on Instagram for growing my business. And since I kind of documented my travels, I have met a lot of Mexican, mainly artists and interior designers through Instagram. So I was slowly getting integrated into the cultural scene here. I still couldn't speak any Spanish. Like, I was really good at Google Translate and like switching from apps and Google Translate. So people would like, oh my God, your Spanish is amazing. And then I would meet them. I was like, can you please speak English? It was like torturous. But my Spanish is really good now. So especially for writing and reading, but I do all my work in Mexico in Spanish. So it's pretty good for technical things. My slang is really good. I'm missing a million like basic words. So I can listen and talk really well. And then people ask me a question and I'm kind of like crickets. But it's Probably learning Spanish after I was 40 is the proudest thing I've ever done because it was so difficult, and it took probably 2.5 to 3 years of me not speaking Spanish at all. Even living with a Spanish-speaking partner. And then all of a sudden, overnight, I could just speak it. So I think my accent is very good. People say I sound like I'm from here, so that makes me really proud as well.
Yeah, I know the Google Translate thing this morning. I went to get myself a chai, and I was able to communicate that I wanted the chai, and I wanted it hot, and I wanted leche entera. And then it got to the point where she was trying to tell me that their machine was not warm, and she needed to heat it up, and it needed to be 10 minutes. And that was when she pulled out Google Translate. So Google Translate is great. I'm really good at knowing Spanish when I have some expectation of what words are likely to be coming at me. So let's hear more about Forrest and how he learned Spanish, because I know you guys are always interested in that.
One of my biggest tips for living in Mexico is to learn how to speak Spanish and to learn how to speak Spanish like a Mexican. Especially if you know slang, it kind of just opens doors and allows you access to the culture in ways that most people are not allowed access. When I first came here, I took Spanish 5 days a week for I think it was 3 weeks in Tlaquepaque. And then I found another school in Guadalajara. Just 1 day a week with a Spanish teacher. She's now one of my best friends here named Laura. Just off and on. I was never a good student, but I'm really kind of picky about language and just curious. So whenever I hear something, I'll look it up, especially if it's slang or the way that they speak in the street. But also when I moved to PV after I'd been here, I think I was here about 6 months back and forth, and then I was back and forth from San Francisco to PV for another 6 months before moving here. And then I lived with a partner in Puerto Vallarta for I think 2 or 2.5 years. And he was an architect, and we did home inspections together in PV. So I think we never spoke Spanish really together, but I think just from listening to him on the phone really helped me learn. And I really didn't speak Spanish at all. And then overnight I could just kind of speak it after we broke up. I think it was just being forced to. But also at that time, I didn't teach him how to speak English, but I corrected all his English because he was doing all of his reports in English, and I think that also helped. I mean, when you're teaching someone your own language, it actually helps you have to figure out how to explain some of it in another language as well.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. I go to these intercambios, and one thing that's great is listening to someone who's learning English and seeing what mistakes they make and how they make those mistakes really helps you to understand what the differences are between the languages. But I want to switch from languages now, and I want to talk about the place where he's living and take you kind of on a tour, and we'll also get the rent.
Last March, after living in Americana in a 1950s medical building, which was very modern on the inside, I moved to this Colonial in Centro. It was built in 1910. It's kind of butter yellow on the outside. It's the tallest house on the street. I don't know. I always feel like the family here had something to state, or the ceilings I think they're about 15 feet tall. This is not my style generally, but I absolutely love the feeling of this house. It's pretty large. These blocks are very deep. This house has been divided into 4 units, excuse me. Mine is definitely one of the smallest. You walk into the living room from the courtyard, and then there's a kitchen that was probably originally the kitchen. It might have been I think it was probably another bedroom. And then back into my bedroom. The doors from the courtyard have been converted to windows. It's just completely different. It's completely furnished with furniture that I would never pick, but it really suits the style of the house. The rent, I pay $10,500 a month, which is about half of what I was paying in Americana, but it includes all services besides the lights, which I think is about $5 every 2 months, and also includes a housekeeper every single week that does my laundry as well. So I think it's an amazing deal.
How about that? About $550 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in a beautiful old house, and includes the housekeeper, including doing your laundry every week, and gas and water and things like that. So just all but the electricity. So that is pretty amazing. So let's hear more about this neighborhood that we're in now.
I'm in the northern part of Centro now, near Sanctuario. It's a very Mexican neighborhood. It's just completely different than Americana. I think most things close around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. It's very quiet in the evenings. The one thing the drawback for me is most restaurants, even though I cook most of the time, most restaurants that I go to are in Americana or in Punto Zapal, in Providencia. So whenever I have friends visiting, and I've been here long enough that I have a lot of people very interested in Guadalajara and coming to visit. So I'm constantly walking over to Americana or to Providencia to eat with them. I am a biker and I walk a ton. So it can be, even going to the gym every day, I think it's about a 45-minute walk each way. So I guess it's my warm up and cool down. So I do spend a lot of time just walking the streets of Guadalajara, which I actually love because it really helps me get a good feeling of where everything is. I'm very close to Santa Terry. It's probably, 10 blocks away. So this is kind of the feeling of an old Mexican Guadalajara barrio, but kind of the buildings here are older and kind of grander. Also, a lot of my friends from all over are starting to buy these older houses and renovate them. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad, but I do believe that a lot of gentrification is going to come from these old colonials being renovated.
Okay, so before we switch over into his business, I want to remind you to subscribe if you haven't already. There'll be a QR code up here. If you're watching on TV, you can use your phone to take a picture of that. And that really just helps me out growing the channel. But let's move on to Forrest's business.
Furniture is why I'm in Guadalajara. It's, like we said, the furniture capital of Latin America. I have been an interior designer for 20 years, but I've always specialized mainly in custom window treatments. I used to sew draperies when I went to fashion school for clients and just have built a business off of that. I did get into custom furniture about 15 years ago. After all the fires in Sonoma County where I was living, I just couldn't find labor anymore. So during the pandemic, I took the opportunity to learn Spanish enough and switched everything to Mexico. We make tons of custom furniture and draperies for mainly other designers in the United States. I also, in the last 2.5 years, have started doing furniture purchasing tours for other expats and immigrants that live in Mexico mainly. I am working with several interior designers as well to help them navigate manufacturing furniture in Mexico to produce smaller custom lines. Most of my clients, it's generally very high-end designers. For my work in the United States, we've been in several magazines. A lot of people think that they can just come to Mexico and start manufacturing without knowing the language and without being on the ground. And the business culture here is just completely different, very difficult to navigate. And also nobody is really going to even entertain the idea of working with you unless you're face to face working with them and speaking in horrible Spanish or just the Spanish that you have. I think that, most people aren't even going to answer an email. They're not going to think that you're real. So I really love the workmanship and the Mexican labor force here. They do an amazing job. They're very humble and very proud of their work. So it's kind of been my mission for my business, but also just to help bring more exposure to the workmanship here and bring more craftsmanship and manufacturing from the United States designers to Mexico.
Yeah, this is one of the beauties of living in Mexico is custom furniture. I have a carpenter that builds everything for us now. You know, we are slowly replacing the pieces in our home. It's just great. And especially when you start to think of stuff that's built here in Guadalajara, I think that's a level up in terms of the craftsmanship and really how beautiful the furniture is, and even some of the woods that they use here are just beautiful. But let's hear about those furniture tours a little bit, and also how you can get in touch with Forrest if you've got an interior design project or you're looking for one of those furniture tours.
So I'm happy to give you a furniture tour anytime. I do not do residential interior design anymore. I retired probably 15 years ago because it was too much marriage therapy for my taste. I'm really passionate about manufacturing and producing the best product that we can. So our furniture tours, I give them year round. It seems like during the winter is the high season. Most of my clients come from Puerto Vallarta, Cabo, but I also have people coming down from Chicago, and then there's a lot of clients from San Miguel right now. So we usually pick up at 10:15. Generally in Americana, I have some hotels that I like to recommend, and then go from Providencia back to Americana, then Tonala, and then in Tlaquepaque. And it usually ends about 4 p.m. I try to schedule it to miss traffic as much as I can, just because I hate for people to visit Guadalajara and experience the traffic and automatically have a negative view.
Okay, so say I'm on one of these tours and I fall in love with different pieces and I want to get them back to La Paz. Is that something that Forrest helps with?
There's a couple of ways that you can do it. Some people like to kind of DIY and buy their own furniture. I'm happy for you to buy directly from the manufacturer. I also help expedite it. A lot of people will do the complete tour and then get an idea of what they want. We do specialize in custom furniture, so a lot of people will just kind of send me photos of what they want or tell me what they want, and then we have it built either through our factory or through other manufacturers. It takes generally like 30 days. It can take up to 6 months depending on what you are ordering. One thing that a lot of customers don't realize about ordering furniture in Mexico is you give a 50% deposit, but once it's done, they want to be paid that day and they want it out of the factory immediately because these are usually small manufacturers. So part of our service is to help facilitate getting the furniture delivered to a storage room that I have here. And then we kind of collect everything for a whole house and then ship it to La Paz or PV or wherever. We're just starting to work more in the Cabo area. So it's much more difficult to find delivery companies that will go from here to there. But we definitely have the ones that we recommend and use all the time.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful service. And before we wrap up the video here, I want to get kind of Forrest's number one tip for expats, those especially who are younger, maybe still working, who are thinking about considering a move to Mexico.
My number one tip, and probably I have a couple, is to learn Spanish. It really helps you integrate with the culture, and that's probably my tip number 2, is to make as many Mexican friends as you can. In general, I think Mexicans are a lot more fun. It has completely changed my life just living in a more Mexican culture. Everybody kind of, I don't know, even on our worst days, we're kind of making fun of ourselves and each other, and it really has helped me kind of like relax and calm down and be less of a control freak. I have some amazing recommendations for Spanish teachers. I think my Spanish teacher now teaches like 10 of my friends, and they all kind of fight over time. But I've had several teachers, so I could definitely recommend that.
That's great. And those Spanish teachers will be down below in the links below, so you can look down there. Also, Forrest tours, if you want to go on a tour with him, there'll be all that information down below. And I got some other videos up here also from other expats, other foreigners living in Mexico, and a tour that I took in Guadalajara last time I was here. So I look forward to seeing you in another video. Hasta luego.